Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Walter Bosley channel. And I see we have our good group of live chatters here tonight. I want to welcome all of you. We have Nick N, Billy W, D. Dorothy Papineau, Shane Walker, Telegraphic, Tim Houston, Jay Wink, Bumbleberry, Johnny Side, D. Dorothy. I said D. Dorothy. Hello again, D. Dorothy. Nancy Hardwick, Kenneth Johnston. And there's Tim Houston, I think I said already. Bumbleberry, yeah, hello. We got you. Malia's here, of course. I knew she'd be here. And I think, R.E. Bavel is here. Hello, R.E. Well, welcome. If SDRG, Generate, and on and so forth. Thank you all for being here. We probably have some new people here tonight, and you're welcome for to be here, and thank you for being here, I guess I should say. Now, tonight I'm getting started a few hours later than I usually do on Wednesdays, but as you know, we did the makeup show on Monday with Sesharie, that makeup live stream. And check that out if you haven't seen it, all about the magic of carousels. And then last night I was on Melissa Harris's show, and we co-streamed it here, did kind of a simulcast, simultaneous stream, as many of you saw. But people are still thinking that it's my show. When I do those, you look closely and you'll see with the intro and with the banners, you'll see the other person guiding the discussion. They're the host. It's their show. But we like to do that so that you guys can see when I'm on other shows. And please go check out Melissa's show. Subscribe to her channel. Check it out for a while. I think you'll like it. She's been doing some interesting research for years. Well, speaking of interesting research for years, tonight I'm going to be talking about something that you could say, with my interest in Sir Richard Francis Burton, started, my gosh, decades ago. But it was while researching the Cabrillo book that I stumbled onto something about Sir Richard Francis Burton, and that this is a man who was prolific. He wrote about everything he did, no matter how tedious and boring. Believe me on the tedious and boring. He once spent a number of weeks in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he wrote a book about that. And I read every word, and I kid you not, it gave me a major headache, literally, every time I sat down to read it. I just wanted to gouge my eyes out. That's how tedious it was. So it makes it all the more interesting to learn that there was a 6-month period of his life in which he wrote not a word. So I thought, what's going on there? What was Burton not wanting to talk about? So as I pour my ice cold, literally ice cold, body armor. Look, I'm not getting paid to sponsor these beverages. You guys that have been my longtime viewers know that I used to do the beverage of the week, and believe me, I would love a sponsor. If one of these beverage companies wants to, throw me some sponsor money, I would gladly feature their beverage every week. Wow. That's good. That's refreshing, because it's been hotter than the devil's butthole here in California. And I know that makes up for, that's kind of a revenge for all you folks that live in the icy cold parts of the country after you go through hellacious winters and tornadoes and stuff. You love to see us Californians getting roasted alive. And that's fair. That's fair. I get that. I understand that. So you guys know that I'm an honest man, honest researcher, and if I think something is BS, I tell you, right? You guys know what I think of the Apollo 11 moon landing deniers. It's ridiculous. I was done arguing with them a long time ago. I let's just say I do not agree with their hypothesis. We went to the moon, and more times than we've been told, in my opinion. I just think that they're hiding two things. They're hiding some of the technology they used to get us there, and I think they're hiding what they found up there. But we went. Then there's the flat earthers. Yeah, I laugh at flat Earth. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous on the face of it, and I'm not going to debate that. I'm not going to argue it. Those are the two things that I don't care. Say what you want about me. I'm never going to buy into those. Okay, but this Tartaria thing, the problem I had with Tartaria initially is that, number one, the claims of John Levy. I think Levy is how you pronounce it. It's spelled Levi. Very often that's pronounced Levi, but I hear people call him Levy. But you guys know who I'm talking about, most of you. But I'm sorry. I have personally taken some of his claims and researched them myself, and literally there was one that within 12 minutes I was able to prove that his claim was crap. Okay, and he didn't bother to do any real research or investigation. It was that ridiculous. It was that stupid, and that was just one. So for the longest time, the Tartaria people were telling me, "Oh, go watch John Levy, go listen to John Levy," and so that's why I did. And I found out that it was nonsense. It was crap, and I just no on John Levy. So initially, for a while, I thought, okay, if this is the guy that's the voice for Tartaria, this is nonsense. So then I looked a little closer, and knowing documented history, I know what Tartary was. I know what the traditional Tatars are and were, okay, and I know that there were cultures absorbed into the greater Russian world, and subsequently for 70 some years there in the Soviet Union. And during the years of the Soviet Union, history was played with. Okay, there was disinformation put out there about Tartaria and this, that, and the other, and people find the old maps and they go, see, there's the word Tartary on there, or Tartaria in the land of the Tartars. And if you take 5 minutes to look at mainstream history, which, folks, for all the problems with mainstream historians, there's a reason we call it mainstream history. It's baseline documented fact. Okay, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because you find one thing you disagree with, you cannot reasonably say, well, all of it's nonsense, all of it's fake. No. Okay. You just can't do that if you're sane or if you're not a fool. Okay. So, there was all that stuff where people were not understanding historical Tartary. Okay. Not really understanding why terms were on a map and things like that. So that for me was kind of like strike two, but not as grievous as the John Levy nonsense. Okay, but then there came something that is as grievous as the John Levy nonsense. Okay, and that's and folks, if you're new here, you're wondering, well, he's just going to rag on Tartaria. No, I'm getting to how I came to a different conclusion about Tartaria than I have about flat Earth and moon landing denial. I'm giving you the background of how I came to this. Okay. Anyway, the third strike was this idea that the World's Fairs, of the 19th century were actually taking place on cities that were there that were like centuries old. And when the pioneer frontiersmen explorers came to North America and started moving west from the East Coast of the United States, they found these cities already built. To name one, people claim this about what's called the White City, the Midway Plaisance, the White City of the World's Fair of 1893 that was held in Chicago. And I've said fairly recently that, and before, I've said it before, some years back, I got to go look at photographs in this book published in 1894 that featured large, beautiful photographic plates of the building of the Chicago World's Fair, starting in 1892, I think, is when it was they started building it. And there it is, and of course I pointed this out in the nitpickers, the pedantics. Well, did you see any photos of it, from the ground up? In some cases, there are images of it from the ground up. Okay. Walt Disney's father was one of the carpenters who worked on the building of the White City for the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Okay. Those buildings were not ancient Tartarian buildings. Okay. That's ridiculous because it's provable. So with these three strikes, for the longest time, I'm thinking, well, this Tartaria thing, it's intriguing. In the back of my mind, it's intriguing because I love the idea of lost civilizations. And I think, that there have been these lost cities and forgotten civilizations. You guys know that. I love that stuff. So the Tartaria thing was nagging me in the back of my mind. I was like, what's these youngsters talking about? I'm a gray beard, right? And, there may be younger people in the audience tonight. Why should I watch this old guy with the beard? And don't call me a boomer because I'm not a damn boomer. Hey, there's this new thing called Generation Jones. Okay. I don't know if you've heard about it, but I think it starts around 1960 or 61. I was born in 63 and goes to 69 right up to when the Gen Xers started being born. Okay. Now, all of us who are not boomers, that were in between Gen X and those boomer a-holes, present company accepted if you're a boomer. Anyway, we've never felt like boomers. We knew we weren't boomers. So now they've got a label for us finally. So I'm not a boomer. Anyway, if you young folks are here and you're Tartaria fans, just hear me out on this, because what I'm trying to tell you here is how I came around to take your thing more seriously. Because the idea of lost cities, forgotten civilizations, well, Tartaria falls into that, pretty firmly. And I was still intrigued. So I thought, you know what? In spite of the tomfoolery, just the lazy non-research of John Levy, and I've never met the man, John. If I'm sure you may be a nice guy. Maybe we should talk sometime. But I'm sorry, what I've seen of your research. Come on, for frack's sake. And the folks reading the maps and going, all on that. Get a better grasp on legitimate documented history and the World's Fair city people. Oh my God. No, you're wrong on that. In spite of that, I remained intrigued about whatever the nugget of truth is about Tartaria, whatever the baby in the bathwater is about Tartaria. So I've kept looking, and wow. I think you'll probably come to a different name for it, but here's where I'm at presently, and especially at the moment, because it's kind of dawned on me. I've been talking about the Vedic, the lost Vedic civilization of long ago, right? That people associate with the Mahabharata and the mysterious Rama Empire and all that. And you guys know that intrigues the hell out of me. You guys know that I think there's a nugget of truth to whatever this Atlantean Empire idea, is whatever, look, Lemuria is a term created during the Theosophy era, okay? Colonel Churchward, Helena Blavatsky, who, she's a problem source on things, okay? But the idea of a Pacific-based, so to speak, empire. Now that led me to study more, and I learned about the Cham Empire, C-H-A-M, okay? And I learned that they were founded upon Egyptian and Hindu cultures, okay, and Buddhism, and they spread out from all the way from East Africa through the Indian Ocean and through Southwest and Southeast Asia, mostly Southeast Asia, right on down to Australia and all that. And they were this really big, I forget the word for it, but it means a maritime, okay, ship going, ocean venturing civilization, which meant likely a lot of outposts, a lot of colonies, and how they very likely came to the Pacific Islands, to South America, and to North America. I'm in that camp that suspects they came to North America, and they really for a time were the masters of all of that, stretching east from Africa, past India, through Southeast Asia, and on to the Americas. And I think they were a descendant civilization of the great Vedic civilization that is lost to us. And I think it was global. I'm in that school of thought that agrees that this Vedic civilization that was lost was global. Okay. Now, you've heard me talk about Gene Matlock, the guy who wrote the last book on Atlantis you'll ever need to read. And he does etymological analyses and presents evidence. He shows that there are words in the Hopi language that are just like right out of what they spoke in India. Okay. And so, and that's just one example. The lost city of the Grand Canyon in that newspaper from the 1909 Arizona Gazette that talks about the city that was found. Now, back then, they used the Egyptian vernacular for lack of a better understanding of what they were actually looking at. But if you read the article, it kind of hints that it wasn't exactly Egyptian. Now, if you look at the Cham Empire, now look up the Cham Empire. That's a documented historical thing, okay? That's a real thing. That's not a fantasy empire. Okay, and really the best book you could start reading on it is David Hatcher Childress's book on the Cham Empire. I have it around here, but it's not immediately handy. But look it up, David Hatcher Childress, the Cham Empire, and this is where like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, came from, and it was a real thing, historical thing, but I think it was a descendant empire of this Vedic empire. But the Cham had Egyptians as part of its culture, okay? It also had Hindus as part of its culture, and Buddhists. Now, when you look at the description of what was allegedly, reportedly, it's never been proven, found in the Grand Canyon, and you look at a Cham, C-H-A-M, Cham, you look at that culture and the influences and the members of that culture, you could see a blend of the Egyptian and the Hindu, and that would make sense of what was described and discovered, according to the story. So it got me to thinking, well, wait a minute now, if the Cham Empire made it as far as Arizona and South America, my gosh, the Vedic Empire, which, people have been talking about it for a long time, a lot longer than I have, well, if they were global, then they had to be here too. And that's, of course, what I've referred to, Gene Matlock talking about it. And it's an ongoing conversation. So I really gave it some thought, and I'm thinking, well, I'll be darned. What if this mysterious Tartaria was actually the forgotten Vedic civilization? To me, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of potential there, and I have a lot to research on this, a lot of threads to pull. But I think if you guys look closely at the two, I think you'll begin to see that there's something to this. So I decided, well, let me take a look at an example. An example that has interesting ties to India. And that is the city of Manuscript 512. Now, you guys are familiar with this book. Here's my, my old, getting to be worn out, personal copy of the paperback of my book, The Lost Expedition of Sir Richard Francis Burton. And if you'll recall, Manuscript 512 is a Brazilian document. It was written in 1753, written by the captain of a small, what's called banderista, a patrol, an exploration patrol. Excuse my chair, I still haven't been able to fix the squeak. And I'm trying to keep my hands off the table so that we don't do this. Manuscript 512, written in 1753. Here's the interesting story. This group of banderistas had been out there doing their thing, we are told, for 10 years. And at different points, they kind of would get lost in the jungle. When I say out there, I mean in the greater Mato Grosso jungle of Brazil, northeastern Brazil. And the captain in this report writes that they found a city, an old city that had been abandoned. There was damage to it, like, some of the architecture had been damaged or destroyed. But it looked like the city was just suddenly abandoned, like in an instant. There was architecture of a style they didn't recognize. I mean, they compared it to what they did know, but it wasn't that. And they reported a strange language, unrecognizable language, carved into these structures. And they brought back, they brought back examples of it. In other words, they drew it out on the report. And I'm going to go into that. I'm going to show you this stuff. So this report was filed in 1753 and archived in Rio de Janeiro, mid 18th century. And it didn't see the light of day again until 1830 or 40. Let me see. Let me see what I've got here. Oh, no, actually, I've got it up on, excuse me, I will pull up the, okay, Manuscript 512. Now remember, we're talking Brazil and Brazilians, so it was written in Portuguese, okay? It is a 10-page manuscript of dubious veracity, according to this. Folks, I'm reading from the Free Encyclopedia, and you know how the editors there are. Unknown authorship, although we're told the captain of the Banderistas wrote it. Discovery of a lost city. Originally found in 1839 at the National Library of Brazil. So 1839 was the year that it was found by a Brazilian in Brazil. Okay. Now, it was still in Portuguese. Well, imagine my surprise when I learn about Manuscript 512 and this mysterious city and such. I learned about it, by the way, first in a Harold T. Wilkins book. Those are wonderful books if you haven't read them. And I was already looking into Burton, and I was wondering what's going on with Burton in South America. Could this city of Manuscript 512, written about in 1753, could this be why he disappeared and what he was looking for? Could I possibly connect Burton to this? And I'll be danged. Yes, I could. Because I learned that Manuscript 512 was first translated into English, credited to Isabel Burton, Sir Richard Francis Burton's wife. And she completed it just like 2 weeks before Richard Burton left to go to Brazil to take a diplomatic post. And she followed him shortly after. But think about this, folks. There's a missing 6-month period in his life while he's in South America. The man was totally fascinated with lost cities, right? Ancient mysteries, forgotten civilizations, that stuff, archaeology. And here we have a document that claims that there is just that, a lost, forgotten city in the middle of the jungle. And who translates it into English but Burton's wife? Now, as you guys know, I have tremendous respect for Isabel Burton. I've respected her since I read, I talk about all this in this book. But when I saw Mountains of the Moon, I really love that film. You got to watch it. And Fiona Shaw, you Harry Potter fans will recognize Fiona Shaw. Okay, but Fiona Shaw, this is in the 90s. She plays Isabel Burton, and the chemistry that the actors, Patrick Bergin plays Burton, by the way, the chemistry they had and their relationship made me read up on. I just got chills. Read up on Richard and Isabel Burton. And that led me to a book titled A Rage to Live. I highly recommend it. It's a biography of their marriage, of their relationship when they first met. She idolized him from the time she was younger. She knew all his exploits. And when they met, she was just like beside herself that he found her interesting because he was a pretty worldly guy. Okay. But the minute they met, she was the one for him. And they had this incredible relationship, between themselves, but also an intellectual relationship. And he was teaching her Portuguese. So here's the thing. I have tremendous respect for Isabel Burton because she was amazing, okay? But I do think that Burton did most of the translation of Manuscript 512, and he gave her the credit because he was teaching her Portuguese at the time. He wanted to be encouraging and give her a credit, for something. So he let her take the credit for the English translation, and off he goes to Brazil. And while he was on diplomatic post, you guys know if you've read the book, he published a book called Explorations through the Central Highlands of Brazil. And nowhere in there does he mention Manuscript 512, not once. Nowhere in there does he talk about the city of Manuscript 512 or anything like that at all. But in one of the volumes, in an appendix, is a copy of Manuscript 512 plus the English translation. So he spends all his time when he's supposed to be a diplomat exploring this area. And then when his diplomatic duties come to an end, he stays in South America, sends Isabel home, and he disappears into the South American wilderness. Okay? And never writes a word about it. Look, any more than that, you guys know I wrote about it here. You guys know what I think. I think he was looking for and went to the city of Manuscript 512. I think Burton knew. I now am thinking, as of earlier today, it dawned on me, Burton, of course, knew that this city was a Vedic of a Vedic civilization, a Vedic culture. How did he know this? When Sir Richard Francis Burton leaves Oxford under, I think, suspiciously set up circumstances, he becomes an officer in the East India Company. He doesn't join the British Army. He becomes an officer in the East India Company. And the first place he does his, he goes off to explore and really dig into is India. So he spends a number of years in India, okay, exploring. He was fascinated with lost cities, ancient temples, the ancient culture, right? The lost languages, that kind of thing. And in fact, at one point, he contrived to have a solo expedition. What do I mean by solo? Not that he was literally by himself, but he contrived to get approval to go on an expedition upon which he was the leader and the only British member of that expedition. All the other guys with him were locals. They were the porters and the guides. They were locals. Okay, they were Indians, people from India, all right, who were from there. No other Brits were with him, no other Europeans. And what did he do? He went to see as many ancient temples and old cities, looking for that, as much of that as he could. Okay, now, Burton was also a big fan of, where's the book? I've got Os Luciados by Camoens. I always get that name wrong. I apologize, but it is it's like the great Portuguese national what's the word for it? Epic. Okay, and in Os Luciados, there's a segment that talks about Vasco da Gama coming to Brazil and being shown a strange ancient city and the machine of the world. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. Historically, Vasco da Gama, we are told, in the late 15th century, which is the 1400s, sorry about the squeaking chair. We are told that Vasco da Gama only comes as close as 600 miles off the coast of Brazil. Now, Brazil, look on your maps, juts out eastward, okay, in the direction of Africa. And we're told that da Gama came within 600 miles of the Brazilian coast, but he decided to bypass it and continue heading southeast, okay? And then he goes on this expedition. After going along the African coast, he goes on to India, and he lands in southern India and, does his first expedition to India there. He ends up doing 3 expeditions to India in subsequent times through the early and mid 16th centuries. Okay, one of his proteges is Pedro Cabral, the man who is credited, okay, as the explorer who claimed Brazil for Portugal. Okay, Vasco da Gama was Portuguese, as was Cabral, of course, and so we're to believe that Vasco da Gama did not just go ahead and shoot on over to Brazil and land. Well, I disagree with that. I don't believe that. I think Vasco da Gama very much so landed in Brazil. And I think that Os Luciados, the epic, Camoens knew something. He knew something about da Gama visiting Brazil, and very likely visiting the city of Manuscript 512. Okay? Now, how does this serve a Vedic Tartaria? Okay? Well, I think da Gama landed at Brazil first. And for whatever reason, however he got it, I've got to investigate this, but I think he knew some things. Folks, look, it's clear that Columbus knew some things about the Americas before he headed over. And remember, there's the whole 1485 expedition in which Columbus probably first landed in the Americas. Okay, we're told about 1492 because that's the big show. Okay, I think da Gama, and I say that in this book, I think Vasco da Gama landed in Brazil and he knew where to go. And he visited this lost city in the Brazilian jungle, the very city that's described in Manuscript 512. And I suspect that this is wrapped up in the very reason why he was going to India in the first place, and may very well have informed his subsequent landings in India, explorations. I think whatever he saw in that city, in Brazil, the city, the lost city, he recognized totally as Vedic. I argue that the language that the Banderistas of 1753, the 1740s into the 50s, I think they were looking at some version of Sanskrit. Okay, and that's why they didn't recognize it. And I'm gonna share this with you. So let's jump into Manuscript 512, shall we? Let's. The Banderistas, first of all, were looking for the mines of Roberto Diaz. Okay, Roberto Diaz is a guy who he owned a mine that was apparently thousands of years old. Okay, now he died in 1622. Okay, this was over a century after Vasco da Gama's lifetime. Okay, and there was this secret mine, and no one was ever able to reach it. And as I wrote here, for 150 years after Diaz's death, men searched the jungles for this endless source of wealth. And that's what the Banderistas were looking for. But let's talk about Manuscript 512. Comprised of merely a few pages, the document was written in Portuguese. The Portuguese of over a century prior to its first known English translation. Now, I don't know how to pronounce Portuguese, but it looks like the relation of the, well, here it is in English. The historical account of a large, hidden, and very ancient city without inhabitants discovered in the year 1753. The document's contents describe the discovery of the most astounding archaeological site in the Americas, the exact location of which remains a mystery to this day. Now, I'm always forgetting how to do this. I want to show you guys some pictures, and I'll be darned. I think I've got to have the file open. So let me go to the Today's Show file. That's open. Now let me come back, see if I'm doing this right. I go to present. I don't know if it's slides or I think it's share screen. Okay, let's go share screen. And let's go to window. And gosh darn it, Rudy. It's not showing up. Wait a minute. Maybe it is. Hold on a minute. I'm going to get this figured out. Oh, there it is. Okay. Now, let me do this. Okay. Folks, this, I don't know if you guys are seeing this. No, you're not. I apologize. I never do this right. I'm trying to show you Manuscript 512, and I just don't think it's working. And that's my fault. But you see right there, That's Manuscript 512. And gosh darn it, I wanted to show you these other things, but let me... I don't know why I can never do this right. Malia usually helps me with this stuff, but let me call her. Because I really do want to share these images with you guys. I went through the trouble of gathering them. Hey, I'm flubbing here live this sharing thing again. I've got the file open. You can see my files on screen, but I'm having a hard time pulling up the image that I want to show. Do I click on it or what do I do? Exit. Okay. Oh. Okay, so I just open the file. Is that what I'm doing? I hope I'm not losing people. I did. Okay. Share screen. Oh, share screen. Okay. Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let me get back to the folks because they're going to kill me for this. All right, thanks. All right, bye. Yes, thanks to Malia, I'm able to do things I should be able to do. There it is. There's a copy of one page of Manuscript 512. You can see there's a big chunk missing. Isn't that interesting? There's a big chunk missing. Well, let me read to you what this says. Okay. It says, now I'm going to tell you where there's blanks, okay? The parts that are missing, words that are missing. In America, okay, the next part's missing. It refers to something interiors, okay? Next to the, and there's big chunks, and there's the master of something and his band, having wandered over, this is probably the commander of the Banderistas, having wandered over the desert country for 10 years in the hopes of discovering the far-famed silver mines of the great explorer Marebecca, which through the fault of a certain governor were not made public, and deprive him of this glory, he was imprisoned in Bahia till death. I love the asides in this. And they remained again to be discovered. This news reached Rio de Janeiro in the beginning of the year 1754. So here we come to it. After a long and troublesome peregrination, incited by the insatiable greed of gold, and almost lost for many years in this vast desert, which was a jungle, we discovered a chain of mountains so high that they seemed to reach the ethereal regions, and that they served as a throne for the wind or for the stars themselves. The glittering thereof struck the beholder from afar, chiefly when the sun shone upon the crystal of which it was composed, forming a sight so grand and so agreeable that none could take eyes off those shining lights. Rain had set in before we had time to enter into the itinerary, this crystalline marvel. And we saw the water running over the bare stone and precipitating itself from the high rocks when it appeared to us like snow struck by the solar rays. Now he talks about, the passage through the mountains and how high the mountains were. We ranched ourselves with the design of retracing our steps the following day. One of us going to fetch wood happened to startle a white stag, which he saw, and by this chance discovered a road between two mountain chains, which seemed cut asunder by art or artifice rather than by nature, meaning by man. Okay. With the overjoy of this news, we began the ascent, which consisted of loose stones piled up once we thought it had once been a paved road. So they find this pass through this mountain pass that they think was carved through, cut through by man, not by nature. And they're describing what was left of a paved road, okay, a long ago paved road, broken up by the injuries of time. The ascent occupied 3 good hours, pleasantly, on account of the crystals at which we wondered. We halted at the top of the mountain, which commanded an extensive view, and we saw upon a level plain new motives to rouse our admiration. We discovered about 1.5 leagues from us a large settlement, whose extent convinced us that it must be some city dependent upon the capital of Brazil. That's what they assumed. We descended soon to the valley with the precaution, then there's damage, the words are missing. It might be in such a case, sending explore more damaged paper, something, investigate the quality and missing, that they should take good notice. Again, a chunk of words are gone. And then it goes to the word chimneys. So they saw chimneys. Okay. This being one of the evident signs of settlements. So basically, even with the damage to the document, the words missing, they found what they thought was a settlement, structures with chimneys. We waited for the explorers during 2 days, longing for news, and only waited to hear the cock's crow to be certain that it was peopled. At last our men returned, undeceived as regards there being any inhabitants, which puzzled us greatly. An Indian of our company, meaning the Native American of South America, resolved at all risks, but with precaution, to enter. But he returned much frightened. Now he goes into the city and he returns frightened, affirming that he did not, nor could he discover the trail of any human being. This we would not believe, because we had seen the houses, and thus all the explorers took heart to follow the Indian's track. What he meant was he didn't see footprints, right? I'll continue reading. This is from Manuscript 512, the English translation, first English translation done by Richard Francis Burton's wife, Isabel, the amazing Isabel Burton. They returned, confirming the above-mentioned deposition, namely, that there were no inhabitants, and so we determined all to enter the settlement well armed and at dawn, which we did without meeting anyone to hinder our way, and without finding any other road save that which led directly to the great settlement. Its entrance is through 3 arches of great height. 3 arches of great height. Remember that. And the middle one is the largest. So tall, short, short. Not short, short, but you get the idea. Whilst the 2 side arches are less. The middle one is the largest, while the 2 side arches are less. Upon the largest and principal, the largest arch, we discerned letters which from their great height could not be copied. I'm going to show you what they said they looked like. See that there? That was the best they could do at what they look like. Here's another. Sorry. Get those up there for you. Oh gosh, I hate this. There we go. See there? No. The other side there. See? Now, they were too high for the guys to really be able to do charcoal rubbings or really, they made them out as best they could. Now, that's important because what you're seeing there is the best that they could make them out. That's important later when I show you something. I'll read on. Manuscript 512, which I think is evidence of the mysterious Tartaria Empire actually being the lost Vedic civilization that was global, if you're just logging in. There was one street, the breadth of the 3 arches, as wide as the 3 arches, right? With upper storied houses on either side, the fronts of carved stone already blackened. The stone was blackened, meaning damaged by fire. So then there's a loss of, they're not able to read the next words. And it mentions inscriptions. And there's a blank, all open. Then again, more damage to the document. Then the words, doors are low of make, meaning, I guess, short, smaller, or something. And then a partial word, and then followed by noting by the regularity and symmetry with which they are constructed, it appeared to be one long house, being in reality a great many. Some had open terraces, and all without tiles, the roofs being some of burnt bricks and others of freestone slabs. So, some type of stone and brick construction. Okay, pretty regular, pretty impressive and large. I'll read on. We went through some of the houses with great fear, and nowhere could we find a vestige of personal goods or furniture which might by their use or fabric throw any light on the nature of the inhabitants. The houses are all dark in the interior. There was scarcely a gleam of light, and as they are vaulted, the voices of those who spoke re-echoed till our own accents frightened us. So they heard their own voices. That's how big and high vaulted these structures were in the city. This is a mysterious city. Oh, I apologize for my chair if it's being really loud. And I move around a lot. I'm sorry. This is in the middle of South America, a jungle, Mato Grosso. Well, the Mato Grosso is, the Central Highlands of Brazil. Having examined and passed through the long street, we came to a regular square, and in the middle of it was a column of black stone of extraordinary height and size. Now, I want you to think of the massive statuary that you see in India and in parts of Asia, even to this day. Well, the Emperor Ashoka, centuries ago, would build these massive statues in India. And so this was a thing, okay? This was a thing. A black stone of extraordinary height and size, and upon it was the statue of an average-sized man, with one hand upon his left hip, right? And the right arm extended, pointing with his forefinger to the North Pole. Isn't that interesting? Think of the maps that, I'm going to throw a bone to you Tartaria map people. Think of the Tartarian Empire, which is shown as being in Siberia, in the northern part of, the Russian lands and stuff, getting close to the Arctic Circle, right? The north. Think of the lores, the various lores, including that the Bible, the author of Revelations, totally stole from the mysterious army that comes out of the dark north, the North Polar regions, which is completely out of the blue. None of the nations fighting in the Battle of Armageddon know who the hell these guys are, and they come out with exotic weapons and mounts, and they just come out of the dark north. And some people say, well, this harkens back to the tradition of Rex Mundi, the mysterious king of the world who lives inside the planet. Now, I've talked about the Vedic lore of the Hollow Earth before, okay? Go back a few episodes, Vedic episodes. I think Malia's put together a Vedic playlist. If not, we will. And I did a Vedic Hollow Earth episode, okay? So here we have this statue, this human being, this man, pointing, according to what the Banderista, what the Portuguese military guy described in 1753 as pointing to the North Pole. He didn't say just to the north, he said to the North Pole. Isn't that interesting? Okay, now let's continue. In each corner of the said square was a needle or obelisk, right? A needle, in imitation of that used by the Romans, but some had suffered ill usage and were broken as if struck by thunderbolts. Now, this is about the point where I want to share some more stuff with you. Let's see. Let me see. Let's go to, let me show you. An example of an archway. Okay. Now let me go to share screen again. Let me go to window. Let me go to this. There we go. There's an example. Okay, this is one example of archways in ancient India architecture, historical Indian architecture. Now this one doesn't have the one in the middle being larger, but I did find an example of that. But it looks like it's another kind of file that I haven't turned into a JPEG yet. But it's exactly what was described, where the middle arch is taller than the side arches. So we know that in Vedic architecture they were doing these triple archway entryways. Okay, so this is a thing. Now, yes, the Romans did it. This was a thing, right? But one might argue, where did the civilizations we know about who did it, where did they get it, right? Did they get it from the lost Vedic civilization that predated them by oodles of ages and years? Okay, now, so that's the arch thing there. And let me go to, oh, that was already open. Let me go to what I found. Okay, let me show you what is in, East Indian architecture. Thank you for bearing with me and being patient with my bringing these images up on screen. I admit I haven't done this a lot on this show, and I've just started doing it recently. Okay, there's an example of an ancient style of architecture in India. Now notice now that looks like a big tower, right? Okay, big tall tower, right? Now, oops. Let's look at this next one here. Let me show you this. Okay, I'm getting the hang of this. Malia's going to be proud of me. Getting the hang of it, finally. Okay, now look at that. See how there's a big square there, and there's, now this is a type of entryway gate, but look at that. 1, 2, 3 of these towers, okay? How they place it, and there's other ones where they're at the corners, but this is one that I found pretty quickly before coming on. You see that, and this is in India, okay? This is the this is the Arunachalasvara temple, okay? The Thiruvannamalai. I'm terrible, folks. I'm going to get better at pronouncing these words, but so here we have. Having examined and passed through the long street, we came to a regular square, and in the middle of it was a column of black stone of extraordinary height and size. Now, see how in the middle of this square, there's a tower. It's not as big as the one described here. And on top of the tower in the city in Manuscript 512 is the statue of the man, more of a normal-sized man, who's pointing to the North Pole. And in each corner of said square was a needle. Well, what if it's not an obelisk? What if the Roman context was the only thing they could mention, because that was what they were familiar with? But what if it was more, like this, these towers to the four sides there? What if it was something like the one I showed you a moment ago, right? What if it was more like that, a little narrower? Okay, and then look at the top. See the top of that, the little pointy top of that? Now let me show you something else. This is interesting. Okay, now remember, it said they were, now get this, they say that these towers, these needles, okay, had suffered ill usage and were broken as if struck by thunderbolts, as if struck by lightning. Now, what do people like to say about that? Lately, it's been going around that there's this mysterious technology that the Tartarian Empire used, in which they have like lightning rods, right? And that it picked up the ether, or which could also pick up lightning. It could conceivably. And they're talking about that. They're talking about how there's these appendages, these metal, copper, brass, or whatever they were, appendages that were how they powered their homes, right? And got their energy, drew their energy, in almost a Tesla style. Well, look at the thing that's on the top of these towers that I just showed you. On many of these towers, look at that. Okay, now, yeah, it's decorative. Were you seeing that? But could that be something that's drawing energy from the so-called ether, some plasma energy? Or did lightning strike? If lightning struck something like this, you might end up with a description like from Manuscript 512, were broken as if struck by thunderbolts. But I could see where lightning, if that was the right kind of metal or whatever, I could see where lightning would just have a field day with that right there. So is that the kind of thing that we're talking about here? Let me see if there's another picture to show you. Okay, I think that's the pictures that I have for this time, but let's bring Manuscript 512 back up so I can continue reading from it. And I thank you all. We're having a great turnout. I thank you all for being here. Please stick around, and I'm still going. This show's going to be a little longer than the usual ones, okay? Because I have, still plenty of information to share with you. So here's Manuscript 512, and I'll continue reading from it. On the right hand of this square was a superb edifice, as if it were the principal house of some lord of the land, like a big temple, right? Palace. There was an enormous saloon in the entrance, meaning like a foyer, not like a saloon where cowboys are in there drinking, okay? A salon more is the word. And still from fear, we did not investigate all the houses. They were afraid. They had a weird feeling. It was so alien to them. Being numerous and something damage to the document to form some, and there's too much damage to the document to understand much of what's being said. But then there's three words: massive, extraordinary, something, extraordinary, something that people had difficulty raising it. Their guys couldn't raise it. I don't know what it was, but it continues on. This document I'm reading had damage to it. You can see the damage on the front page there in the image right there. The bats were so many that they attacked our patrol's faces and made such a noise that it astonished us. Upon the principal portico of the street was a figure in demi-relief, carved out of the same stone and stripped from the waist upwards, crowned with laurels. It represented a young figure and beardless. Beneath the shield of the figure were some characters spoiled by time. However, we made out the following. Now, I'm going to read what the inscription said, what they continue to describe, but go back to the relief. Okay, in a lot of Hindu temples, you have these amazing relief sculptures, right? Incredibly detailed relief sculptures. Okay, and many of them, they're nude from the waist up, right? Oh my gosh, sorry about this chair. I'll reread this. Upon the principal portico of this street was a figure in demi-relief, carved out of the stone and stripped from the waist upwards. Okay, crowned with laurels, on the head. It represented a young figure and beardless. Beneath the shield of the figure were some characters spoiled by time. Characters meaning letters. They couldn't make them out. Okay, so it describes the relief sculpture, and it sounds for all the world like it could just as easily be one of these sculptures you would see on a Hindu temple. Go Google Hindu temples, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, folks, this is blowing my mind because I've never looked at this from the Vedic perspective, and what they're describing here could just as easily, all this crap about it being ancient Mormons and Hebrews and oh, for God's sake, okay, no. Or even, I don't think it was Egyptians either. I think we're looking at ancient people from India, the lost Vedic Empire. And now I'm thinking that this lost Vedic Empire could be the clue to solving the mystery of the lost Tartarians. Okay, we might have to come up with a different name for them, but lost mysterious Tartaria, I'm leaning towards it being this Vedic civilization, this global Vedic civilization of many, many ages ago that predates the Common Empire. Okay, so now we made out the following. On the left side of the square is another edifice, quite ruined, but from the vestiges remaining, there is no doubt that it was once a temple, for part of its magnificent frontispiece still appears, and some naves and aisles of solid stone. It occupies a large space of ground, and on its ruined walls are seen carvings of superior workmanship. Think of the intricacy and the detail in the ancient Hindu temples. Okay? Large space seen carvings of superior workmanship, with some figures and pictures inlaid in the stone, with crosses and different emblems, crows, and other minutiae, which would take a long time to describe. Now, you've got to check out Praveen Mohan. I think I'm getting the name right. Mohan Praveen. Oh, gosh. Anyway, you guys know who I'm talking about. Praveen. He did a video where he went to some temples and he showed a cross. Let me pull up my notes. Okay. Now, in Shikananatar Temple in South India, there is a cross that is 1,300 years old. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, the temple is 1,300 years old. We're told that Christianity didn't come to India until the Europeans arrived there, like in the era of Vasco da Gama, which would have been over 100 years after the dating of this cross. And folks, it's not like a Christian. It's a cross that's kind of equilateral. Now, here's what's interesting. He points out to predate the cross way before Christianity, way older, okay, than 2,000 years. In the Brahmi script, the number 4 is a cross, an equilateral cross, okay? It's called Chatur, possibly a reference to the Chatur Vedas, okay? And it means 4, because in Brahmi script, 1 is a hash mark, 2 is 2 hash marks, 3 is 3 hash marks, and 4 is this and this. See? 1, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, right? The 4 parts. And that predates Christianity. So we all know that the idea of the cross, the generic symbol cross, way predates Christianity. Even Christians, know that. But there were scholars that said there was never a cross that predated Christianity ever found in India. And Praveen Mohan, he takes you to a temple and proves that wrong. Okay, you should check it out. What I'll do is I'll maybe post that link for you guys to check that one out. Now, so they find with crosses and different emblems and crows and other minutiae. Well, take a look at, let me see. I think in one of these. Yeah. I'm going to do this. I'm going to share this screen with you here. Let me remove that one. Let me open up this other one. Where did I find it? Oh, there it is. Hold on. Okay, there it is. There it is. No, wait. You guys don't see it yet. Okay, let me pull it up here. I apologize. Let me share the screen on this other image here. Okay, right here. Okay, take a look at this one. Okay, look at the detail on that. Okay, look at the detail. Now listen to, these are the words from Manuscript 512. On its ruined walls are seen carvings of superior workmanship, with some figures and pictures inlaid in the stone, with crosses and different emblems, crows, and other minutiae, which would take a long time to describe. Folks, look at this. Look at the minutiae here. And this is of an ancient style, okay? This is Mrudeshwara temple. Okay, but look, this is, as you guys have seen this, this incredible, just like it says in Manuscript 512. Okay, superior workmanship, figures and pictures inlaid in the stone, crosses and different emblems, crows and other minutiae. Take a long time to describe. Okay, that's just an example of you know, the ancient Indian architecture. Now I'll read on. I'm reading Manuscript 512, and this is all in support of the discussion that the lost city of Manuscript 512 was, in my opinion, of this lost Vedic global civilization, which I, by extension, am beginning to think will explain the mystery, the mysterious origin and identity of the Tartarian Empire, this mysterious Tartarian Empire. I'm going to continue to read from Manuscript 512, written in 1753 by a Portuguese commander of an expedition in Brazil. Follow this edifice. Large portions of the city totally ruined and buried in large and frightful openings of the earth, like there was a big, massive earthquake and big crevasses and sinkholes open up. And upon all this ground, not a blade of grass, tree, or plant was produced by nature, but only heaps of stone and some coarse, rough works. There's more damage to the document. It mentions a number of corpses, but that's broken. The document is damaged there. So all we know is they find a bunch of corpses, a bunch of dead bodies. And they think that maybe they were killed in an earthquake. Now, I'll read on, Manuscript 512. In front of said square runs rapidly a mighty and broad river, which had spacious banks and was agreeable to the sight. It might be from 11 to 12 fathoms abroad, without considerable turnings, and its banks were free from trees and timber, which the inundations usually bring down. We sounded its depth and found in its deepest parts from 13 to 16 fathoms. On the further side of it are most flourishing plains, and with such a variety of flowers that it would appear as if nature was more bountiful to these parts, making them produce a perfect garden of flora. We admired also some lagoons full of rice, of which we profited, and likewise innumerable flocks of ducks which breed in these fertile plains, and we found no difficulty in killing them without shot, but caught them in our hands. Now, let me check something out here, real quickly, shall we? Let me close that. I'm gonna check something out here because I'm curious. Let us see. Okay, now get this. Archaeologists from both Brazil and England have found evidence of the domestication of rice by indigenous populations in southwest Amazonia 4,000 years ago. Okay, now the question is rice indigenous to South America? There are two native species of rice present in the Amazon region of South America. So it appears, you know, on the one hand, we're told that the Spanish brought rice to Latin America. Okay. Now, usually it was attributed to Asia, Africa, and they're saying now South America. Okay. So, you know, it seems like the idea of rice being native to South America is an historically recent discovery. But I wonder if, the Vedic civilization taught the South Americans how to cultivate rice. I mean, that's kind of interesting, the mention of the rice, right? I'll read on. Manuscript 512. We marched for 3 days down the river and came upon a cataract which made a fearful noise from the force of the water and the obstacles in its bed, so that we thought the mouths of the far-famed Nile could not make more. Okay, there's trees, there's animals. Look out. To the east of this waterfall, we found several deep cuttings and frightful excavations, and tried its depths with many ropes, which, no matter how long they were, could not touch its bottom. We found also some loose stones, and on the surface of the land some silver nails, as if they were drawn from the mines and left at the moment. So they found these excavations. Somebody was mining. This, whoever owned this city and lived in the city, they were mining. They even found nails fashioned from silver left around. Amongst these caverns, we saw one covered with an enormous stone slab, and with the following figures carved in the same stone, which apparently contains some great mystery. That's written in Manuscript 512. I'll read this again. Amongst these caverns, we saw a cavern covered with an enormous stone slab, like they sealed off this cavern with a gigantic stone slab, implying that this was fashioned, okay, by hand, artificially. And with the following figures carved on the same stone, which apparently contains some great mystery. Now let's look at inscription. Let's look at the inscription here. Okay, that might, yeah, I think that's what I showed you. It was these letters, okay, right up there. They couldn't translate it, but it was, they saw these letters carved in other places, but whatever was carved, whatever those words meant on that slab, it either identified what was beyond that slab in that cavern. Sorry, again, I'm shaking the screen. It identified what was in there, or maybe it was a warning to stay out. Who knows? That's the mystery. It would be interesting if they could find this, or have someone who knows Sanskrit. Let me show you. Let me show you another image here. And I thank all of you. This is a great turnout tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. I really do. Let me show you this image. Okay, this is, I pulled this off. This is a basic Sanskrit chart. Now look at that, okay? And then, again, look at what I'm showing you here. Okay? Do you see the resemblance there? Do you see how, if they're looking at this, this is the first time they don't know what Sanskrit is. They're doing this from, from what they're seeing. And remember, they also said some of this was so high that they tried to draw it the best they could see it. Okay. And then what if it's an ancient form? Okay. What if it's an ancient form of the Sanskrit you see there? Look at the common, there's 3 or 4 characters in there which are identical, virtually identical to what's on that. Okay. I'm blown away. Folks, I think what was carved on these buildings in the city of Manuscript 512, in this city in the South American jungle, I think it was a Vedic city. I think it was of this Vedic civilization that was global. And these Portuguese guys of the 18th century, they're not going to know Sanskrit. Okay. Maybe some of them would, because Da Gama's expeditions to India had already happened. Portugal was in India. Okay, maybe if, there's always going to be the guy out there that says, oh, they made it all up. Grumble, grumble. Take another drink of his beer or his scotch and bitch and moan because he's got a certainty fetish. We got too many of those guys in our community. And no, they're not saving the truth. They're just showing their asses. They know who they are. They need to grow up, get over whoever hurt their little feelings, daddy or their first girlfriend or mommy, whatever the case may be. But I digress. But this is what I'm thinking, folks. This is what I'm thinking is that this. I sounded like Jimmy Stewart there. This is what I'm thinking. This is, you were a very good pupil. You were a very good pupil. Remember the line from Vertigo? Oh yeah, I'm on a roll tonight. That's why we're going longer than just an hour and a half. Because this, I love Manuscript 512. This is one of my favorite pieces of research that I've ever done. This is one of my most important books. If you haven't read it, for God's sakes, go now to walterbosley.com and get your copy. It's essential. Okay. So here we go. So they found the mines. Okay. They found the giant stone slab sealing a cave with mysterious writing on it that I say is Sanskrit. And I'll continue reading. About a cannon shot from the village was a building as it might be of a country house with a front 250 paces long. That's big. The entrance was by a large portico, and we ascended a staircase of many colored stones which opened into an immense room area. There's that saloon word again. And afterwards into 15 small houses, each with a door opening into this said area, and each one bore its own water spout. And then there's more damage as they're describing what's there. And then they're noticing that they haven't found any recent signs of humans. But then they see this. Get this. They go by, I think, the river again. From this spot, a companion left us who, with some others, after 9 days' good march, sighted at the mouth of a large bay formed by a river, a canoe carrying 2 white persons with loose black hair and dressed like Europeans. My question is, who was there who knew about this city and they were also looking for it? You know, you're talking loose black hair described as white Europeans. Was it the French? You know? I'll continue to read. One of our companions, J. Antonio, found in the ruins of a house a gold coin, round and larger than our pieces of 6. On one side was the image or figure of a youth on his knees, and on the other side a bow, a crown, and an arrow, of which sort of money we did not doubt there was plenty in the said settlement or deserted city, because if it had been destroyed by some earthquake, the people would not have had time to suddenly put their treasure in safety, but it would require a strong and powerful arm to examine that pile of ruins buried for so many years, as we saw. Now, they're saying that the finding of the coin further emphasized that whatever happened to the city happened fast. Now, they're talking about burnt buildings, right? Burning. There's something burning, something that hit fast. Did it have to be a natural disaster? What if they were attacked? What if we're talking about this lost Vedic civilization? Folks, we're going back to the days of possibly, the war that's talked about in the Mahabharata. Okay? This war with advanced technology and weapons. What if one of the flying vimanas, so to speak, attacked this city? What if that's why some of the buildings were burnt? What if that's why it looked like an earthquake? The roads were shattered and there were holes in the ground, and what if it happened fast? Just this attack, and off they flew. Again, I have to suspect that what this manuscript 512 of 1753 is talking about is a lost Vedic city. We'll have to research this image of a bow, a crown, and an arrow. We did not doubt that there was plenty of this intelligence I send to your excellency from the desert of Bahia. This is a region of Brazil, and from the rivers of Paraguaçu and Una. We have resolved not to communicate it to any person, as we think whole towns and villages would be deserted, but I impart to your excellency tidings of the mines which we have discovered in remembrance of the much that I owe you. So they did discover the mines, like I said. Supposing that of our company one has gone forth under a different understanding, blah, 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 so forth. All this, your excellency, you're so wonderful. Thank you. And That's essentially the end of Manuscript 512, the English translation done by the Burtons. And then Richard Burton goes off just like within 2 weeks after he and his wife translate this mysterious manuscript, and he goes off to Brazil, and he does for about the better part of 3 years. He's given all sorts of free time, and he's all over this Mato Grosso. He's all over the Central Highlands of Brazil, where the manuscript of 1753, manuscript 512, claims this lost and forgotten city was located. Of course, I argue in here, Burton went to South America to find that city, okay? And I argue that he learned about it while in India. So Richard Francis Burton knew damn well that that city was there and where to find it, basically. And he knew that he would find an ancient city, a city of the lost, ancient India, the civilization that was there, the Vedic civilization. Okay, that's what I think. That's what I think. He knew it, and before him, I would say, when the epic Os Lusíadas, the Portuguese epic Os Lusíadas, talks about da Gama going to, and let's get to that part. Let me share that with you. Okay. This is what da Gama, this is what Camões writes in Os Lusíadas, that here it is, right here. This is a segment from Os Lusíadas, right? Now, Burton was a huge fan of Camões, the author of Os Lusíadas. He studied him. So are we to believe that there's no connection between Burton going off and looking for this city in Brazil and what he learned from Os Lusíadas in India? Because here's the part in Os Lusíadas. Thou and thy warriors follow where I lead. Firm be your steps, for arduous to tread through matted brakes of thorn and briar, bestrewed with splintered flint, winds the steep, slippery road. Okay, now remember when Manuscript 512 describes the route up there, they were walking, and they were saying that it was like, let's go back to this. Okay. Okay. This is in Manuscript 512. With the they found that that pass between the two mountains. So they're up in the mountains, and there's a pass that they believe was a road made by man, not nature. Okay. We began the ascent, which consisted of loose stones piled up, and we thought it had once been a paved road broken up by the injuries of time. And then in Os Lusíadas, we have, firm be your steps, for arduous to the tread, through matted brakes of thorn and briar, bestrewed with splintered flint, like splintered flint, people, is loose stones. They're loose stones. Winds, the steep, slippery winds, the steep, slippery road. It's through a mountain pass here, folks. She spake, and smiling caught the hero's hand, and on the mountain summit soon they stand, and a beauteous lawn with pearl enamored over it. Now remember, it had once been a paved road broken up by the injuries of time. The ascent, an ascent to a mountaintop, like in Os Lusíadas, okay? 3 good hours pleasantly on account of the crystals at which we wandered. We halted at the top of the mountain, which commanded an extensive view. It talks about the crystals, the ground is shiny and has this crystalline marvel. Well, Os Lusíadas describes it as pearly. Pearls could almost look crystalline as they're glinting in the sunlight. So what I'm arguing in my book here is that Camões and Os Lusíadas somehow knew about da Gama's actual landing in Brazil, and da Gama went to this same place. Okay, this is what I'm arguing. Da Gama went to the same place. Excuse me. Lay down, girl. Lay down. No, lay down. This is what I'm arguing here, okay? Da Gama went to the same place. He was shown the city. He was shown even more, Okay, and I go into it in this book in detail. Okay, that basically in Os Luciados you have the same place that the guys in 1753 visited. They're describing the same exact journey up the mountain and the mountain pass and the stuff that's found there. Now, Burton was a student of this, not just for entertainment. Okay, so I say that Burton, when he went to India or he went to India because of what he knew about this. Okay, he went to India, learned what he learned about the ancient culture there, and because of that, and because of what he studied, discovered in Os Luciados, of which he was obsessed with, he knew where and how to find this lost city of Manuscript 512. Okay, and to recognize it when he saw it. I would say that Sir Richard Francis Burton, because I argue that his report, and he would have done a report, I argue that Burton's report, this is going back to the 1860s, that Burton's report of the 1860s of the city of Manuscript 512 remains classified to this day. Why? Because of the suppression that's gone on. We know this, the suppression of lost civilizations and lost cities. That's a whole other show. Okay, so this has really opened up my eyes, this Vedic connection, this India connection to all of this. It makes sense. Burton spent those years in India. Okay, he studied India. He studied their culture, their ancient history. He studied Camões, which has the Da Gama visit to Brazil, to the same described place as what's in Manuscript 512. Okay, I think Burton knew to look for a Vedic ancient Indian city in the Brazilian jungle. I think Burton knew that that was Sanskrit, and Burton translated what was written on those walls, and it remains classified in secret to this day. That's my opinion. That's my position. I go into all that in this book. Okay. So then we come back to ancient India and Tartaria. If this new look at all of this with the lost city in Brazil and the mysterious writing, if that is Sanskrit, if the bizarre architecture is the ancient Indian architecture, like I've shown pictures of tonight, like you've seen in books and stuff, and go look at Praveen Mohan's YouTube channel. I'm hoping to get him on the show, but I'm working it. I've communicated with his assistant. But anyway, the long ago Vedic culture civilization, the lost one, can explain so much. And other researchers have shown etymologically that there was some type of ancient Vedic India influence on the Americas. So this is making even more sense that the city of Manuscript 512 was of this civilization. Now, let's bring it back, as I said, to Tartaria. We have this mystery. Okay, you Tartaria folks, I've said, look, I don't buy Levy's lazy research and his stuff that he presents. Shame on that lazy research. And I don't want to hear other lazy thinkers telling me you're being unfair. BS. I'm not being unfair. Okay, he's just falling way short of a basic standard. Okay. Number two, just because the term Tartary and Tartarian this or whatever is on maps, learn your history of maps better. Learn your history of Siberia and Russia and all that. Okay. Learn the difference between what it is your gut's telling you is the mysterious civilization, the difference between that and Tartars and Tartary and stuff, okay, which was a culture absorbed in Russia. Okay, that's a fact. Learn to discern the difference between what you're trying to argue and that. Okay, and for God's sake, drop this crap about the World's Fairs buildings were built centuries ago and that's Tartarian Empire. Stop it. Okay, there's plenty of evidence to argue against that is laughable. All that, just scrape away those three things, and I'm with you on the idea your basic idea that there is this lost empire, okay, this lost Tartaria. And maybe the word Tartaria or whatever's involved, I'm going to be digging into that. But what I want you Tartaria enthusiasts to consider, okay, is the ancient, long ago Vedic civilization influence, okay? Because that could really fill in some holes for you, and that could give you a much better argument for your theory. Because I'm with you on that. You're damn right that there's a lost and forgotten civilization. There's more than one, and certainly suppressed, okay? So I hope that you realize that I'm kind of generally on your side, because there's a nugget of truth to what you're saying, and I don't believe in throwing out the baby with the bathwater, but please throw the bathwater out. In the bathwater that needs to be thrown out of those three things that I've said more than once in this episode. But this is how I came to this, is looking at Burton, looking at the manuscript, looking at all the evidence of the Vedic influence, and it just, and then the Com Empire on top of that, it just is starting to make the kind of sense that resonates when your gut tells you you're on the right track. So, Vedic Tartaria, yeah, I'm going to be talking about this again. I'm going to be looking to have some of the more serious Tartaria researchers on the show to talk to them, because, I think basically, yeah, you're onto something. And really now I'm excited, because I realize that in my own research, I've kind of been going in this direction, okay? But coming at it from a perspective that I hadn't connected before. And so this is when this kind of thing happens. This is always exciting for someone who's a researcher, because you're like, oh, new threads. Okay. So I think that I've been going on and on, but I want to go to questions. We've got a great turnout tonight. Look, folks, if you're new to the channel and you've been hanging out here, we've got great numbers tonight. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Stick around, because we got questions coming from the live chat. I'm not done talking about this tonight, but I will be talking about this in future episodes. You bet I will. And if you're not familiar with me, see where my name is, walterbosley.com. Go to walterbosley.com. You'll see all my books, and you'll learn more about me. We're having an event in October called NimsaCon. Check that out. You can find that at walterbosley.com. And don't forget, folks, coming up, today's the 14th, in just 4 days, August 18th, we're going to have the drawing to win a free ticket to NimsaCon. To experience NimsaCon, you have to attend NimsaCon, but you have a chance to win a free NimsaCon ticket in 4 days, but you have to enter to have a chance to win. Okay, and sometime during the show, if Malia's here, she'll probably run the scroll across the bottom, showing you how to do that. But let's get to the questions, folks. If you've been asking questions before, now, sorry, if you're new here, you're going to have to ask them again, because I do not look at the live chat while I'm on my roll. Okay, I only look at the live chat questions at this point in the show. They must be in all caps, as Nick N says. And yes, keep it on topic until I open it up to other things. So don't ask me questions about other things. Don't say, what do you think about UAPs? What do you think about Lou Elizondo's book? We're not talking about that tonight, okay? Keep it on topic. So let's go to Rand. Says Siberia, the Crossland Bridge to what is now Alaska. The king's tide at springtime comes with this, how the natives go. Okay. Interesting. I guess somehow that's on the topic, but Johnny Side, questions in all caps and be on topic, please, we shall reiterate. D. Dorothy, hey, Walter, can you add the Burton book to... I'll ask Malia if she can. I think we probably already processed it, but we'll figure it out, D, because I want you to read that book. Oswald Spengler, Vedic Tartaria versus Tantric Victoria. Right? Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Um, anyway, yeah, folks, as you guys can tell, I was really excited to come to this kind of little light bulb that went on in my head. Oh my gosh, what if the Tartaria thing can be explained by the Vedic, explained by this, mysterious Vedic civilization that others have talked about and that I'm enthused about, and it's making sense. Lodevik the 19th asks, Lost City of Gold, does an endless supply of gold or silver suggest transmutation of elements occurring locally? Oh my, Lodevik, you got to read this book, because in one of the chapters I say just that some ancient civilization was manufacturing gold at Pumapunku. That Pumapunku was a gold manufacturing machine, explaining the legendary supply of gold that King Atahualpa's wife hid. We're told that she hid it. I think that was coded talk, meaning that she simply was aware of how they got their gold and how they literally created it. I think Pumapunku was a gold manufacturing machine, and I go into it in a chapter of this book, The Lost Expedition of Sir Richard Francis Burton, available at walterbosley.com. And yeah, folks, guess what? I write books and I sell them. Why? Because this represents just 6 months of 7 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day, reading research alone. Okay. I bust my ass writing these things and researching them. And this one in particular. When you buy my book, you know what you're doing? You're helping compensate me for the time. My time is valuable, for the time and effort that I put into this. No, us people who do research, we shouldn't just give away the fruit of our labor. Sorry, reality doesn't work that way. Okay. I'm not about to give away the fruit of my labor, because if that's what the public expects, I'll stop doing this. I'll stop doing this channel. The channel's for free. You guys get to watch the channel for free. There are super chats if you want to throw them at me. But yeah, I want to make a living being a writer. My degree's in journalism, so it's my professional education. Okay. But anyway, I bring that up because, we got some jerk offs in our society that just think everybody should give away the fruit of their labor. And they rant about it, and they're fools. But Lodjevic, what you're talking about, I go into it here in this very book. So I'm glad you asked about that. Nick Ann asks, what other early European explorers hit up Brazil? We're told that Cabral was the first, but I think Da Gama and his expeditions, and I think there were others. I haven't done a specific deep dive on that question. Ari Bavel. So, as part of your thesis that these secrets are known to some elites, or are they still lost? Well, whether they're elites or not, I believe it's known to academia, certain corners, select people in academia, certainly the intelligence communities of the West. The United States, yeah, they know about this. England, yeah, I think Burton reported to British intelligence and a secret society. And again, all this stuff, I go into that in the book. And I got to let my dog out real quick. Stay right there. I'm coming right back. I'm not disappearing. Don't you disappear. Hello, gal. Okay, folks, I'm back. Don't go away. Nature calls for doggies as much as they call for us. So let's go to the question. Barry7676. I remember hearing Graham Hancock talking about Aboriginal Indian DNA. Do you think that's another tie-in? I'd be interested in reading what he said about that now. Definitely. It's worth looking at. Rand, the face and the buildings of the Green Man Hunter theory. What if he was a Vedic hunter from their times? That's interesting, Rand. That's very interesting. Veterans Cannabis Advocacy Group. What is your opinion of the anarchists channel? Okay. Okay. Veterans. I'm not familiar with the anarchists channel. Please give me some more context if it has to do with what we're talking about tonight. Then I can answer that. D. Dorothy, the trident on the temples of Buddhism are copper and an extension of the Hindu temple. Okay, thank you. That's very interesting. And probably serve as good lightning rods, right? Stephen Van Fossen, how important is alchemy with these Vedics and Tartarians? You know what? I would say very much so to the Vedics. The Tartarians, maybe by extension. We don't know about Tartarians as such. Now, remember, folks, I want to qualify the term Tartarian as we're using it. Right now, that's a placeholder. Think of the term, and Tartaria folks, enthusiasts, think of the term Tartarian and Tartaria as a placeholder, because I guarantee you, I promise you, there's going to be a more accurate, specific word for them as we learn more. But for now, so that everybody understands the context of what we're talking about, we'll use Tartaria and Tartarian. Recognizing that it's separate from Tartary and the Tartars of the Russian civilization, okay? We have to acknowledge that. Philip Blair, did they mention any lost cities in North America that they were in trade contact with? No. Did they find goods that would have come from North America? When you say they, do you mean... Who do you mean? Nick N. Soulite Expat had a question earlier about, is it visible from above these days? Still, maybe they can scan the area or something. Oh, that's a question a lot of us have been asking Soulite Expat. What are they seeing with the satellites? What are they getting with LiDAR, right? And again, I think anybody that's doing that, it's controlled information, okay? And who knows what's been covered? Who knows what's used to cover? They could have, the people who know it's there could have long ago covered it so that it's not seen from satellites. And I would say that between physical camouflaging and digital camouflaging, I'd say that that's been done. Paulio Savaggio, have you seen any link from the Indus Valley script to the script found on Easter Island to the script found in South America? You know what? I haven't looked, but that's a very good question. Marcos Toledo, could the Carthaginians have found their way to Brazil? Yes. I'm going to say yes. Soulite US Expat, trying to find public LiDAR data in the Brazilian highlands, but I see only for the Amazon. I know you can use remote viewing to pinpoint an area. Once identified, use a LiDAR drone if allowed in Brazil. That's interesting. But oh my God, you mentioned remote viewing, and we have experts here in our community on YouTube that they'll tell you, because they're the experts, that remote viewing is all BS. It's all BS. I'm sorry, I'm being a little facetious, because we have some angry people in our community who are full of opinions that I don't think they're thinking it all the way through. Veterans Cannabis Advocacy Group says, yes, anarchics information also deals with ancient culture and related manuscripts that reveal many lost or hidden civilizations. Tartaria is a subject covered, okay? Similar to your interpretation. Oh, thank you, veterans. Thank you. That gives me more understanding of what you were referring to. I will check this out. Anarchics in channel. Now, when you say channel, you mean like a channel here at YouTube, or where is it? You don't mean like channeling from the ether or an entity. You mean like a source. Philip Blair. I mean the explorers from Europe and writing back to their crown heads. I'm still not understanding your question completely. Rand, copper turns green with water over time in colder places. Indeed. Yes, on YouTube. Thank you. So the Anarchics channel, Anarchics, whatever it is, Anarchics, because I guess anarchy, right? I will check that out. That sounds interesting. I comment about naysayers on remote viewing because I can respect doubting certain things, but I've looked into it myself. I've tried it myself, and I have had, in some cases, some pretty strange and remarkable results. So again, on remote viewing, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because some angry materialist doesn't want people talking about things. There's Tartaria. This is an example of this thing where we've got this thread of people or demographic of people in our community, particularly over the last 15 years. I think it's intensified, in which their attitude is, if they disagree with something, if they think something's not real or true, they get angry and they really don't want people talking about it. That's what it is. They just don't want anybody talking about these things because they don't find any value in it, because they don't believe it. Well, why not just, look, I'm not really interested in Bigfoot. Bigfoot doesn't do anything for me, intellectually or emotionally. It just, so what? I have no problem with the idea that Bigfoot exists, but I don't get the obsession. Do I go out there and rant about people who believe in Bigfoot? No. I just ignore them. I don't go into their world or invade, or go after the Bigfoot guys. Same with, look, I have an opinion about the moon landing deniers, but I express that opinion on this show or if I'm on another show and I'm asked. Okay, I don't do a dedicated, this episode we're going to go after those moon landing deniers. How dare they talk about this? I don't do that. Same with the flat earthers. If you ask me, I tell you I think it's BS. And on here, I'll refer to it, but I don't make like a whole series out of it. I don't go on an angry rant about it. I choose to ignore them. Let them do their thing. And people who think all UFOs are ET, no, I don't think that at all. But, I don't make it, I don't get obsessed on it. So, anyway. Where did I leave off? Ooh. Okay, I'm trying to. Okay. Okay. Again, great turnout tonight, folks. If you're new here, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Polio Savaggio, I can't remember where I heard it, but I read the Egyptian once was, I think he had some autocorrect weirdness going on there. Was once ancient Egyptian markers on the Mississippi River. I think I've heard that basic idea before too. And it might not be Egyptian, folks. It might possibly been described as Egyptian for lack of a better understanding of what they were looking at. It could have been the Kham Empire, CHAM, the Kham Empire. I think I do a video. I talk about that in a dedicated video here. Marcos Toledo. There are stories of Great Lakes copper making its way to Bronze Age Mediterranean civilizations from North America. Yeah, it's believed the Phoenicians, by extension Carthaginians, in some cases, came here and mined copper in the Great Lakes region. Veterans Cannabis Advocacy Group. Walter, do you believe in time travelers that come? Okay, not this show. But stick around, veterans. I have something to announce at the end of the show that based on that question, you'll find interesting. Paleo Savaggio. I can't remember where I read it, but okay. Read there was an ancient Egyptian markers. Yeah. And it might have been the Com Empire explorers. Nick N. Has Sesh Hari ever done a rough draft of the Brazilian area in question, just to rough and potential locations for such a site? I'll ask him. That is a very good question. Veterans. Walter, do you have any estimate how many years or time the human... the Vedic thing is, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of years old. I think it's a lot older than what than what we're told in the biblical traditions, right? That is such a what's the word for it? Ego ethnocentric, view that I don't think civilization began in the Mesopotamia, in Samaria. I don't think that they're the end all be all. I don't think anybody there is chosen by a god. Maybe suckered by a god in some cases, but or a pretender, would be god. But I just don't revere, that as the start and end all be all of things. Like, people in America, they're, good churchianity folks. They buy into all that. Anyway, but as far as civilization goes, I think much, much older than what we're told, based on the biblical narrative that has greatly influenced our academic perspective, what we're taught academically, whether they're atheists teaching it or not. It's still, it all started in the Middle East. No, bullshit. Philip Blair. I mean, did they write about finding anything in South America that we now know would have likely come from trade? North American mines. I'd have to look at that specifically, Philip. That's another way of saying I don't know the answer to what you're asking. Maybe. Solite. I just want to say that the Burton book is my favorite of all your books. It's a must read. Thank you. Available at walterbosley.com. But thank you. I'm really proud of this book. In fact, this is the book I was most proud of. And then, of course, Esoteric Napoleon. And it's right up there with this. I'm really proud of the work I did on this. And that's why I, love to push it. Paleo Savaggio, yeah, bad autocorrect. What about the story of the two Egyptian brothers in Australia? I don't know about that. That's wild. That's interesting. I'll have to have Malia ask Luna about that. Archaics. Yes, I will definitely look that up. So, hey, folks, we're at the 2-hour mark. Let me use this time. Veterans asked about the time travel question. What a coincidence. I haven't said anything about it, but excuse me, because something just jumped up. Lodjevic, 19. Does the city name Zarahemla appear in Secret Missions, Richard Burton? You bet it does. You bet it does, because I think it's obvious. Here's the thing. The Mormons talk about Zarahemla, right? And for all the crap that, Joseph Smith created, made out of whole cloth, he learned something about what was in South America that was true. Okay. And then, of course, he used it for his own purposes. But so in their tradition, the city of Zarahemla, Burton in 1860 goes to visit Salt Lake, buddies around with Brigham Young. They both hit it off. They like each other. They give him information. They give him a book as a gift. Okay, he learns more about the 7 cities in South America, Zarahemla being one of them. He learns about that from Brigham Young and the Mucky Mucks running the vault in Salt Lake City in 1860. Then almost a decade later, he goes to South America, and there's all this stuff about this lost city, right? Now, Burton and his wife translated Manuscript 512. Colonel Fawcett, jump ahead to the 20th century, Colonel Fawcett says in his journals that he studied the translation of Manuscript 512 done by Isabel Burton. Colonel Fawcett was also an intelligence officer in the British Army, and I argue likely had access to Burton's still classified report on his exploration of the lost city of Manuscript 512, which I suspect he knew was what the Mormons called Zarahemla, and a guy named Practical Eschatology, I don't know his real name, he said years ago that Fawcett's lost city of Z was, of course, Zarahemla. So it all connects, people. It all connects. So yes, Lodjevic, the discussion and details on Zarahemla appears in this. But the caveat is I think Smith's religion is bullcrap, but he learned something of truth about these lost cities. Nickhead, and he used them for his own purposes. Regarding Philip Blair's question, did they find tobacco residues in Egyptian mummy analysis? Yeah, I think that's known. That was even on mainstream science shows. Polio Savaggio, here's my normal question to you. Ella, have you looked into emergence theory? No, okay. No, I have not. Oswald Spengler, has Gurdjieff appeared in Tartaria research? Has Gurdjieff appeared in Tartaria research? I don't know. I'm not what you would call an expert. Okay, now let me get back to the announcement I was going to make. I'm going to pause from the questions, so hold your questions. I have been working on a fun little book. It's a fun little book, folks. It's only 80 pages. It's a little pamphlet, okay? And it's called The Time Travel Guidebook. And it has some stuff in there that you haven't heard me talk about, okay? It has a possible suspect for who I think Charles Howard Johnson might really have been. It also is a guidebook for using the consciousness-driven method of time travel as dramatized by Jack Finney in his novel Time and Again, and as dramatized by Richard Matheson in the classic Somewhere in Time. Again, it's a short pamphlet of a book. It's going to be available starting this weekend. Okay, look for the announcement. And it was a lot of fun to put together. And if you read it, and please read it, go into it with a fun attitude. Have fun with it, okay? But it's useful info. And it is. I've written it as a guidebook, as if these are the things you would need to know and understand in order to travel through time using the consciousness-driven method. Okay? I put it all together. Like I said, I kept it very short because it's a guidebook, just that. And it'll be available this weekend. Okay? Malia, she and I put together just did the cover art, and she really refined it. She did a hell of a job. I mean, it looks fantastic. So this weekend, that will be available. My gosh, I've been going on for 2 hours, and I want to thank everybody for being here. We had a great live chat group. I think I saw some names I'd never seen before, and certainly there's people watching that have never been here before, and I hope you like tonight's talk. And go to the channel if you're new. Go to the channel, subscribe. Please subscribe. And go look at the previous live streams and the episodes and all the videos that are at the channel. And I think you'll find something that you like. There's a whole series of these Vedic. Look for Vedic in the title, and you'll see my whole progression of this Vedic civilization discussion. And oh my gosh, Barry 7676. Thank you, Walter. Great show. Thank you, Barry. $20 super chat, folks. That's very generous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate it. Seriously. Thank you, Barry. And, yeah, go check out the videos and please come back and, jump in the live chat and ask your questions or contact me at walterbosley.com. You can contact me, folks, at walterbosley.com. There's a contact form. You can do a message form. You can get all my books at walterbosley.com. And yeah, you damn right. I write books and I sell them. It's how I'm able to pay the bills and buy the groceries and still do what I do that you guys like so much. And anybody who thinks that I should get a day job and still do all this research and be able to do all these books to just give away, well, that person is what we call a goddamned idiot. Okay? Or they have another agenda. So I'm not going to do that. And when the day comes that it's expected of me, bye-bye to all of you. I'll be gone because I won't do this anymore. I wouldn't be able to. So, walterbosley.com for the books. And folks, there's footnotes in these things and bibliographies. I cite my sources. Just because I'm in Code 12, which is a fun, interesting idea discussed. I'm in this cool little film called Code 12. You can catch the link to see the trailer for it at the site, walterbosley.com, and you can buy access to the film to watch it. Now, there's people in that film who I totally disagree with their ideas, and there's even people in it whom I have no respect for. Okay, and they're in the film. I didn't know they were going to be in the film till after I did my part, and even so, I'm not going to say yank me out. But we do these things because it's good to have opposing faces and identities in these things. If all we ever did was agree to be in films with people who we agree with and who we like, then that would just be an echo chamber, right? I think if someone asks you to be in a film, unless it's you're asked to do something criminal or it's advocating something criminal and heinous, then do it, be in it, even if everybody else in it you think is a butthole. Okay, be in it. Fly in the face of the buttholes and the people you disagree with. Just get your face out there. And by getting your face out there, you get your voice out there. Okay, and these people you disagree with, they want you to not be in the movies that they're in. They want you to just disappear and go be in an echo chamber because they want an echo chamber. So, when I'm asked to be in something, again, unless what I'm asked to do is illegal or heinous, I'm going to say yes. Folks, we're talking about documentaries on ideas of strange technology and weird phenomena and stuff. Okay. For crying out loud. You know what? We got some people, mostly males in our community, that are they need to loosen up. They're wrapped just a little too tight. And there's something else going on in their lives. Okay. And they're masking that with this, this anger that we see. I don't know, but somebody asked me, how could you be in a documentary with that guy? Well, I didn't know he was in it when I was asked. But anyway, go check out Code 12. You can check it out at walterbosley.com. And if you do decide to buy a viewing of it, get it at our site so that we get credit for that. I'm in the film. I'm going to be part of a big promotional activity in October, the weekend after NIMSACon. And you can also even attend that if you like. But go. The movie's not expensive. Go check it out. It's fun, and it's intriguing. Speaking of NIMSACon is October 11th through the 13th in beautiful Sonora, California. It's an attend-only event. We're not streaming this. We're not even recording it to play later. Okay, if you want to experience NIMSACon, you have to attend NIMSACon, but you can win a chance. Or you can enter a drawing and have a chance to win a free NIMSACon ticket. Okay, so enter that drawing. It's going to be in 4 days, August 18th and go to walterbosley.com, and you can either go ahead and buy a NIMSICON ticket, or you can enter the drawing. So there we go. I saved all my pitching and my business stuff for the end to not drive you guys nuts. And again, if you're new here to the Walter Bosley channel, thank you for showing up. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you liked it. Give us a thumbs up. Please go subscribe. And folks, I think that's it for tonight. 2 hours and 11 minutes of Walter Bosley. Good God, is plenty for anyone. And so it's time for me to go for tonight. And thank you again. Thank you for that super chat, Barry 7676. I really, really appreciate it. Hope I didn't miss any. But thank you all. And there's going to be more Vedic Tartaria discussion going on here, I'm telling you. So good night.